Welcome, everybody, to the Cone of Shame Veterinary Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Andy Roark. Guys, I am here with my friend, Dr. Mary Gardner, and we are talking about helping pet owners process end-of-life decisions. You're like, boy, Andy, that sounds like a real downer. It's not. It's really not. I have had Mary Gardner on the podcast a number of times. She's one of my favorite people to talk to. She is so funny and positive and optimistic. We talk about end-of-life. We talk about euthanasia a lot. We talk about hospice care, but we don't talk about it in a sad way. I want to make sure I always say up front, I don't mean to be disrespectful, and I don't think people listening will take it that way, but, you know, it's one of those things where when you deal in euthanasia, you should find some levity where you can find it, and you should choose to look on the bright side and see end-of-life care in the most positive way that you can. I think Mary Gardner does that better than absolutely anybody. And so we laugh a lot, and we talk a lot about deep thoughts around end-of-life care and what it means, and we talk about the beliefs of pet owners, and we talk about religion and all of these sorts of things. It's really a very fun conversation. I hope you guys will enjoy it. Let's get into this episode.
This is your show. We're glad you're here. We want to help you in your veterinary career. Welcome to the Cone of Shame with Dr. Andy Roark.
Welcome to the podcast, Dr. Mary Gardner. Yeah. How are you, my friend?
I'm good, Andy. Yay! I know, I need little sparklers.
We need to add in an applause track is what I need. Like, yeah. So, yeah. For those who don't know you, you've been a friend of mine since the first day of vet school.
That's right.
And you are also co-founder and CEO of at Lap of Love Pet Hospice. And you are an entrepreneur. You have a lot of different things going on, and you are one of my favorite people in the world to talk to. So I'm so glad that you are here.
Thank you. What is this? My fourth time, or maybe my third time?
I think you're up there.
I am.
I mean, I'd say fourth or fifth.
Maybe.
Is what I was thinking. I saw an article that came out back in April, and I immediately thought of you when I saw it. And it's called "Replacing a Deceased Pet Helps Emotionally." And so this article is citing a number of statistics that came out of a MetLife study. So they did a survey, and they said that more than 40% of people got a new pet before the other pet had died.
Interesting.
When they're talking about replacing pets after euthanasia or after losing a pet. On average, respondents said the socially acceptable wait time before getting a new pet is after 2 months. They said 75 people said they did not feel guilt about adding a new pet too soon.
Okay.
And so guilt about adding a new pet, not high up. 62% chose a pet of the same type and size when they got a new dog after the last one. And then, let's see, the most common breeds that were brought into a house after the loss of another dog breed were mixed breeds, Labrador Retrievers, and German Shepherds. They were the most popular
German Shepherds
dog breeds. I know. I thought that was an odd choice.
I knew the doodle. You know.
Well, a mixed breed and a Labrador, I'm kind of like, these are the most popular breeds, but the German Shepherd's kind of the dark horse.
That was surprising. Okay, I'd love to know, who they asked, but MetLife. Okay, very interesting statistics,
yeah, sure.
Andy.
Yeah.
And I love what you thought of me.
I did immediately. I was like, I want to know what Mary Gardner thinks about this. And then also, this is how my mind works, is I started thinking about, I hate to say it, replacing a pet, but that's what we're talking about, right? Yeah. Is like, what does that transition look like? What does the next pet look like? And so I started to sort of think about this and like, what does this mean? And so I wanted to ask you some questions as the co-founder of Lap of Love Pet Hospice, and you've been involved in palliative care and hospice care for well over a decade now and things like that. So I had some questions that came to my mind for you is, do you see pet owners justifying getting a new pet? Like when you're working with families and they have a hospice case, something like that, do they ever have a puppy running around that they feel guilty about, or did you ever get?
Okay.
Do you ever it's we're just fostering right now, like.
Okay.
Do you ever get that?
Okay. So yes. By the way, I get it all. So yes, I have seen new dogs in the house. Now sometimes I'll give them some slack because sometimes they bring in another pet because they hope it re-energizes the one that's not well.
Yeah.
And I've seen that where it has helped. I've also seen where it doesn't help. And, they're knocking the old boy over. They're, stealing the food. He's got cognitive dysfunction. And now you add this other dog, like cats, right? Cats are so, don't mess with their system. And now you're bringing in this little kitten.
Yes.
So I've seen it where they brought it in to help, add some fun, add some spice to life.
Yeah. Okay. I get that.
And then also I have seen where, dare we say, I don't want to call it a replacement because it's not a replacement. What it is.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that either.
Because you can't replace Duncan, right? What you are doing is filling the massive freaking hole that dog dug in your heart. And you can't imagine not hearing the nails on the tile, not smelling the fur, not standing up and having fur all over you, not having to wipe down a dog after you walk in the rain, like not having to step on kitty litter. Like you're replacing what it meant to have that pet in your life. And not replace, but you're filling that void that they are going to leave. And I think it's actually quite an honor. Like you're honoring that they did a really damn good job.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine life without them. And it's okay to have a little bit of joy while you're also having a little bit of sadness go on.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Again, and I don't mean this as any sort of criticism.
No, I know.
I'm just genuinely really interested in how do people process this? Do you have a sense, like, if there's three categories, right? There's people who say, hey, I know the end is coming. We're going to go ahead and have another dog come in and for the benefits you talked about of bringing some energy, or just going ahead and, you hear a lot of people say, well, I want the younger dog to learn from the older dog. And they sort of have this story that they tell. But whether it's that, right, of like, we're gonna bring in a puppy while we still have our previous pet. And then there is sort of the direct handoff, which is like, hey, our pet has passed away. There's sort of a hole in our heart and in the house, and we're not going to wait very long, and we're going to have another pet come in. And so the survey was sort of saying, 2 months or so. And then there's people like me, where when I lost my last dog, I didn't get another dog for well over a year. And that was just kind of a thing that I wanted. And just, I don't know, I don't exactly know why I had that experience, but I wasn't ready to get another dog right away. And so anyway, do you get any sort of sense of like, how common are those groups?
I think it's such a mixed bag. I think all of those groups are equally weighted because it's so situational. And I have gotten a new dog, like soon after my Neo died, I was, my Doberman that I was like, oh my gosh, I miss all those things. And I adopted an adult Doberman because I wanted an adult dog again. I wanted his presence. I didn't want to start with a puppy. So I think everything is so situational. And then there are times where you go through intense care, and intense caregiving can really give burnout to some families and to a caregiver, right? And so if you were spending so much time in the anxiety of, I'm going to be saying goodbye soon, I've got to, you could be having arguments in the house, like all the things that the emotional stress it brings caring for an elderly or terminally ill pet, that when they're gone, sometimes you just need a freaking break. And you imagine bringing a new dog in, whether it's a puppy or, or a kitten, that's obvious training, but any new pet in your house is getting a whole new system, getting everybody organized. Are they separation anxiety? Like who knows what they've got. So sometimes you just want to have a break, and it doesn't mean like anything more than just having that break. And I've had times where I needed a longer period of time. And then there have been times where I'm like, whoa, I need tomorrow. I am so sad. I need it right away. So I think it's just it's all the gamut. You also could have kids, and maybe you want to have something the kids can focus on, so I think it is such a mixed bag. I don't see more one way or the other.
When you think about people who have had an extremely difficult time sort of at the end of life or saying goodbye, and then you think about other people who appear to be handling this sort of transition pretty well. Are there any characteristics or patterns that stand out to you? Are there things that sort of predispose people to have a real difficult time during the transition, as opposed to people who, I don't want to say are more resilient necessarily, but they seem to come through the experience, in a less sort of, painful way?
So here's just a little tip. If you hear what we call distancing language. So for instance, if you've got, like I've got my dog, Norin. It's a boy dog, Norin, right? If I call him it, like I'm going to put it down this weekend. So many of us think, oh, well, she doesn't love her dog. She's not even calling it by his name or calling it a boy or something like that, right? She called it it. So if you don't, it's not that. It's actually distancing language because you're so like upset over the thought of losing that pet that you actually are almost not even thinking about it. And you use this distancing language. And I think oftentimes we think that they're not caring, but these are the ones that we need to these are the people we got to be really mindful of, that they're having a hard time. Is that they're just like, I don't want to see it. I don't like it. And that is actually something very different. So that's one thing just to keep in mind. Don't assume if they're jovial, because it's called duping delight, where like laughing over something is actually because you're either painful or lying, And so like, how could it be fine this weekend?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's laughing because, the alternative is breaking down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's just called duping delight. And it's just, we just got to be there for whatever it is. And there's times also where they're ready. They've been struggling for so long. They've been making this, they've been going back and forth and they're ready. So like this weekend, I actually euthanized my own kitty cat on Saturday.
Oh, so
and it was Mingo. And I got Mingo in 2008. So the summer after we graduated vet school. So that's a long time. And I got her, I found her in the islands. So I found her in the Turks and Caicos Islands and I brought her back home with me in a carrier and everything. So like I rescued this cat from the islands.
You took her away from a tropical paradise.
Doesn't sound good, does it?
And brought her to your apartment.
It was, right. It was North Caicos, which is a very remote island. And there was no food around. She was like emaciated and she just had Dorito chips. So don't make it sound like I brought her back from like Jamaica living on a hammock somewhere.
Yeah.
Drinking.
Exactly. You took her away from a resort, a tropical resort.
Right. Where all the guests were feeding her. No, she was
100%,
emaciated. She was missing a back foot. Like she was a hot mess. Anyway.
Oh my gosh.
So it's been almost a year of dealing with IBD and like all this stuff. And Dr. Beth Lechner, remember her from when she was intern? Yeah.
Yes.
So she's a specialist down here in South Florida, an internal medicine specialist. So I've been going to her with Mingo. So she knows like all the stress that I've been having. And, it comes to a point where I'm just like, what am I waiting for? Am I waiting for her to be so bad that the decision is super easy? And I said, I promised her, this promise I make is to take care of her even to the end. And I don't want her to be so bad. But I also say, this is going to be weird, but euthanasia sometimes is like being nauseous and you just need to vomit. And you're nauseous and have you ever been nauseous where all I need to do is put my head in that toilet, vomit, and I'll feel better. But none of us want to do it. It's like the worst thought to think about. Yes. That's euthanasia, is you're just nauseous and you've got to do it. And once you do it, you actually feel better. And as soon as I did it, just the relief of my anxiety of having to do this, of saying goodbye, of the whole legacy gone. I mean, she was such a legacy to me since I graduated vet school. So it was really hard. And sometimes you feel relief and a joy again. And it doesn't mean I don't love Mingo if I went out to get another cat. It's just that stress is gone. And then I also could have a hot mess brain and need 3 months.
I think every veterinarian wants to help people, especially at sort of the end of their pet's life, help the people. And we want to be comforted. We want to be supportive. And as I've gotten older, I think I've gotten more and more around to this idea that you have to be a little bit careful because, you want to be able to take people's hurt away, but sometimes there's just nothing that you can say, and sometimes you can make it worse. Mary, do you think that there's anything that veterinarians can say to pet owners to help reduce pain? I know that it's probably very contextual, but yeah, what is your thought there? I mean, you and I have talked before about vets sort of trying to interject a little bit too much into the situation. And where do you kind of come down on that?
It's hard. And so many people will say too, like, well, what would you do? And like, if it was my own pet, and sometimes we get so much into that, and it's hard because all of our situations are so different. And so for that, and then I'm going to talk, I think, a little bit more to your point. I always say there's a subjective time period, and we are in that subjective time period. Whether we want to say goodbye today or tomorrow or a month from now, I support your decision. And if you call me on Monday and say, oh my God, I had a crappy weekend, Buster couldn't get up, blah, blah, blah. Can you come today and say goodbye? I support your decision. If you call me on Monday and say we had an amazing weekend, we did 5 things on his bucket list, he had visits from his girlfriends, we took pictures, can you come and say goodbye? Because that's how we want his last weekend to be, I'll support your decision. And I think sometimes us vets can be like, well, but he's doing good. But you're not around all the other stress and all the other, so you've got to rely also on your owners to say, I'm emotionally now ready to say goodbye.
Yeah.
And so then one small little trick that I like to say is, so let me ask you, Andy, do you want your pets to suffer?
Yeah, no.
No.
Definitely
not, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So none of us wants our pet to suffer. Oftentimes when you're as a veterinarian, you're euthanizing a pet and they look like a hot mess and they're, scrawny and all the things, right?
Yeah.
And you're trying to comfort the family that they're making the best decision, right? So we'll say, he's suffering, so we're doing the right thing. So when you say he's suffering, what did you just tell the family?
Oh, I told you, you screwed this up. Like you've done this wrong.
You've done this wrong.
And you have.
And now.
Like your dog is clearly in pain.
You made him suffer, right? The thing that none of them. So instead,
you let this happen.
All you have to say, and it's so easy, is he's struggling and we're doing this so he doesn't suffer. And it turns the whole thing like, oh my gosh, now I'm actually giving the gift of taking away the opportunity of suffering. And so the only time I will ever say he's suffering is when you've got that person on denial island and that animal needs us to intervene because they don't want to euthanize. And we know, all vets listening know that they've had that where you're like, what the heck?
Yes.
So those are just some tips.
What do you do when pet owners lean into religion? Like, I'm sure that that's happened to you before. Yeah. Religion of any type, you know. So let's just say, let's say not your religion. If religion becomes a thing, do you lean in? Do you lean back? Do you just try to disappear into the wallpaper? Like,
I love this. So listen, as a girl that's named Mary, clearly religion has been a part of my life at some point, and probably we all know what religion that is, right? But I'm not a practicing Catholic, but that's what I was raised to be. So I lean in to the fact that if we're doing some celebratory rituals of whatever it is, like, that's amazing. Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah. Like, this pet means so much to them that they're placing the value of their rituals of what they believe on into this pet's passing. Who am I to say, well, Buddhist or, Jewish religion, whatever it could be. Like, that's not cool. Or, he doesn't go to heaven. And I told you my joke about heaven once. I think I did, and you loved it. Well, hold on. I'm going to tell it to you in just a second. But all right. But the point is, I find it fascinating and lovely to be a part of these things. And I try to respect. Listen, I can't tell you. I know some Jewish Hebrew because they prayed over their pet. I've been where I'm almost like suffocating because of the incense flying around and the Buddhist. I've been in so many rituals and I love it. Like, I just love it. So I remember though, and I told you this once and you were dying laughing, and I don't know if I said it on your podcast or not, so I'm going to repeat it. But I was at the University of Pennsylvania and a vet student came up to me and he said, Dr. Gardner, I am an atheist. I said, okay. And so when somebody asks me if I think that their pet goes to heaven, what should I say? And I said, okay, let me just confirm this.
Okay.
You're saying that you're an atheist, so you don't believe in heaven, right? And he's like, yes. I'm like, okay, I just want to make sure I got atheist down. And I said, so if somebody asks you that you want to know what to say, he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so here's what you say. Because the family that is asking you if their pet goes to heaven clearly is not an atheist.
Yeah, there's one answer that's going to make them happy and one answer that's not going to make them happy.
So just say yes. Just say yes.
You're an atheist. We got nothing to lose.
That's what I said. I said, what are you worried? You're going to go to hell for lying? Because you don't believe in hell either. And I hand to God this was a real conversation. So if somebody comes and you don't know for sure, just say it's clearly they want the answer to be yes, right? And the miracle is none of us really know. None of us really know. So if it eases my mind to think that I've got an army of angels watching over me every day, Andy, you keep your pie hole quiet. I got an army of angels watching over me. And speed of angels. So, I own a crematory too. And so we don't call the pets pets. We call them angels. So every pet through this is they're angel. Oh, yes, your angel is here. Right? Because there's also when you give ashes back, do you say, here's Toby? Or do you say, here's Toby's ashes? Yeah. Right? Like,
here's your angel.
So we say, here's your angel. Yeah. So we've had one or two people, I don't like angel because I'm not cat, whatever it is, right? And I said, it's a term of endearment. That's all that it is. It's a term of freaking endearment. It doesn't mean I believe that they're an angel, right?
I love people today.
Right. I mean, I can call you.
I
can't believe she called. It's like me calling, hey, sweetheart. I mean, Allie may not like it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I see problems there also. Like, that's the point. It's like there's just not an easy answer. So everybody should just kind of go along as best they can.
Is it gonna kill you just to say yes? Or I truly have had either atheist, whatever. Yeah, I've had atheists during euthanasia that say, I don't believe, and I'm like, okay, dust to dust, ashes to ash, whatever. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to like read them. Because I don't, my mother would hate me to say, I don't know.
That's not in our job description.
Correct.
That's 100% not.
Correct.
Not what we're doing.
Absolutely not. But you know what? If the little children want to write a note to their dog and for me to take it to the 100%. Crematory, I'm not going to say, why are you doing that? Because it ain't going to read it. Yeah, right? No. Like, no, you freaking take that. You roll it up like a scroll.
100%.
You put it in their paws.
Like a sacred scroll. Yes.
You put it in their paws and you freaking do the right thing. Sorry, I get a little heated.
Yes, I 100%. Okay, good. I like it. I totally agree with that. All right. I was thinking about this recently. As a veterinarian who say you're a hospice vet, right? How much do you think about death? And I mean like philosophically versus just saying, you know what? I don't think too much about it. I go and I comfort the family and I go on and I choose not to think about it. I could see people going either way. How much do you, Mary Gardner, just think about death as opposed to saying, this is a medical process and that's how I think about it and I really don't reflect on it much more?
Okay, this is a great question because it's sort of like asking a vet that primarily does, vaccines. Like, do you just think about vaccines all the time, right? But ours is a way more emotionally heavy situation. Yeah. So I don't think that my job has had me think about death more. What has had me think about death more is after I turned 50.
Yeah.
Hand to God, it was right. I was like, holy crap, I've got less years ahead of me than I do behind me. And like, so I better make it count. So that's what really hit me the most. However, what it has helped me with is understanding death in humans and being there to support people who are doing hospice to a human, having to make a decision of care because we don't even have euthanasia, right, in the hospice. So even when my stepsister was dying 2 years ago and I'm like, we need to put her in hospice. And everyone was like, like, no. And I'm like, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. Like, it's okay. So I'm much more of a champion for end of life in the human space, I think, because of this. And I'm reading a lot more books, and I don't read much, but I read more in that than I do even in management and stuff like that. I just find it very fascinating.
I think that's really interesting. I just sort of think I'm having the same sort of thoughts, right? So I'm coming up, I'm 48 now. And again, I've been thinking about my kids are getting ready to leave and go off to college. And I think I know that's a big deal for me right now, but like, it's making me feel like I'm going to be an empty nester in a couple of short years and it'll just be me and my wife and, kicking around this house by ourselves. And like, I know that it's exactly right. It's time to get more pets. But it does sort of make you sort of start to think about like, well, where is this going and what does this mean? And I think I'm starting to have some of those thoughts. And so it is interesting. I do think that sometimes you can overthink your day-to-day job.
And to me, it's not euthanasia every day that I'm doing. I am truly making an experience for someone who is in pain. That person is in pain and I'm making an experience to help take away their pain. And so it's not just about the pet and the euthanasia. So I leave not heavy-hearted. I leave like, oh my gosh, that dog had such a cool home. That dog had been doing the Jewish prayer over them or whatever. I don't mean to do like, I just love it. Right? That pet had such a cool dog bed. Like, how lucky was he? Like, I leave there knowing like how cool it is. And what bothers me, what I think about are the ones that don't get that. Like, that's what I think about. So, and that's why I'm a champion for, end of life to be better. But I don't
absolutely.
I mean, listen, when I see my wrinkles and saggy skin and all that stuff, I'm like, oh God. I'm like, I'm starting to become a Shar-Pei.
Not remotely true. How many veterinarians have worked at Lap of Love, Mary, over the years? Do you have an idea?
That's a great question. So yeah, over 1,000. We currently have 400 that are working with us now. So I would say even closer to 2,000 have worked with us.
That's amazing. All right. So you have seen a lot of veterinarians do hospice care, and I'm sure some of them had a great experience and some of them probably figured out this wasn't for them. Are there any characteristics in veterinarians when you think about the people who really just sort of found a job that they really cared about or really loved in hospice versus vets who are like, yeah, this isn't for me? Are there patterns there that you see between those two groups?
Okay, that's a great. So if you were to say, Mary, like what makes a great like Lap of Love vet? That's just an easy one for me to do. And by the way, I'm over here gonna look on my side eye over here to see how many.
I thought you were Googling what makes
no the
asking for CBT. What it is.
Okay, no, I say it correctly. 1,060 veterinarians have worked with us. So I knew it was over 1,000. Okay. So there are people who you self-elect into this. Do you remember, I think you and I were in gross anatomy class together, like, or rotation, yes, right? Yep. And I remember wearing our like overalls and stuff, right? And I think Janelle in our class was her name. Like she went into pathology.
She's a pathologist. Dr. Janelle Novak. Yeah.
Yes. Look at how I remember this. I remember the smell of cutting into the intestines of those like cows and stuff. And here's Janelle, like happy as a clown, right?
Like, yeah, you made an incision. You're like, it's in your face, and you were like, I'm out.
So bad, right? It was like an intestinal fart just came and like, who chooses to be in this is my thought. Same thing with our world, right? You electively choose to be into end of life care. And we get people that'll say, this may sound weird, Andy, but I'm really good at it. Right? Like I'm actually I'm proud to say I'm really good at that.
Yeah,
do surgery again, but I'm really good. And so people are good with that bedside manner, with that communication, with caring about it. So they got to say it. We've also had some people that say, my husband thinks I'd be really good at it. And so that's actually very telling because I could tell if, some of my friends are, well, you would be good at it. Now, me though, what's interesting is when we do in-home hospice, right? In euthanasia, and we don't bring technicians with us. We go by ourselves. And some people get a little bit nervous about that. And it's not because they're nervous to go into homes. It's like, what if I can't hit a vein, right? So,
sure.
But we train everybody on how to deal with that. Like that's not my thing. How can I make a good paw impression? Like you got to work on your arts and craft skills. But what makes a really good lap of love vet is all vets, I would say, are compassionate. Like all of us are oozing compassion, right? So it's not that. Like I think that's such an obvious thing to say, well, they have to be compassionate. What I think is so important is know how to read a room. So you walk into a family's home and there's 3 people there. There's the, husband and wife that are in an argument. There's the teenage kid that's blaming them for not doing the surgery or whatever, right? And you need to know how to read a room fast. And you need to know when you need to be the quiet vet. You need to know when to be the silly vet. You need to be the one that, they need time. They need me to talk about why this decision is the best decision. They need me to do this fast and get out of here. You got to read a room. And that's a hard thing to do sometimes. And so it is not, everyone's, don't you get bored of what you do? Every home I go to is a new story. Yeah. Everyone is amazing. Like, I love it. And I come out with, as you know, we go to dinner and I can blabble your ear off with my stories. You got to not be robotic about it. Like, the only thing I'm robotic about is pulling up my medications. Like, okay, I know, it's a 60-pound dog. Here I go. But the rest of it is all artistic. And you got to be good at it. And you have to appreciate, we obsess about the details that matter. Like, it is so important to make sure all those details are important. So you gotta be somebody who obsesses about those good details. Not all details, because not all details matter, but the ones that matter. Because our experience is what makes it beautiful. And that's our secret sauce. And not everybody can appreciate it.
Dr. Mary Gardner, thanks so much for being here. Where can people find you online?
Oh, Andy, I will come anytime you find some random article. So I want to talk to you. So my personal social media website is, my handle is Dr. Mary Gardner. So Dr. Mary Gardner. And then Lap of Love is where you can find information on hospice.
Outstanding. Thanks for being here, my friend. Guys, thanks for tuning in and listening to everybody. Take care of yourselves, gang. And that's what I got for you guys. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. Super big thanks to Mary Gardner for being here. She is really amazing. One of my first veterinary friends back from our days in orientation at vet school. So anyway, she means the world to me. And I always love to hear what she has to think. Guys, thanks for being here. Take care of yourselves, everybody. I'll talk to you later.